and gentlemen, what's going on? It's your boy, and welcome back to another storytime video, or I guess you could call this Chris drama, or airing out dirty laundry, or even spring cleaning. I don't know what we're going to call it, but this is something that I need to talk about. And so, let's talk for a moment. First off, I want to start by saying these are kind of like my emotional rants and little monologues / dialogues I'm having, and kind of putting together to help kind of document, help me move past some of the shit that I've been through the past few years. People have been curious about it. Well, I want to show that I've grown and I've changed in how I see a lot of situations. So I want to show you guys, just how my thought patterns have changed, things like that. Who knows? Maybe a video like this helps someone out who's going through a dark tunnel in their life just like I was. And, if that's true, hopefully this helps you out. Today's, story, whatever, this is going to be about a time I dealt with some very shitty management and kind of go over the in-between of now and back when I lost my home in 2019. I've bitched about this for a very long time, for years now, and people have known about this, manager situation with Josh, who kind of royally fucked me and my entire brand over. This is kind of like for those who don't know, here's kind of like that documentary that they'll watch and understand. And for those who maybe need a refresher, this is for you too. I started working with him while he was an employee for a dispensary. Just a little after my mother had passed away, I went into the shop. I was feeling really down. I was picking up some flour because I was going through tough at the moment and extremely fucking torn up. Either way, he was the clerk at the time, at the front desk and everything, putting the, instead of putting the fries in the bag, he was putting the nugs in the bag, you know what I'm saying? And that wasn't the first time I had met him. Now, before I had him as kind of like my weed dealer from the street back when I was younger, but we had lost contact for a while, and that was kind of the first time after a while we talked. I was in a very fucking vulnerable position. What ended up happening from the situation is I ended up spending about 2 years where a majority of my money was getting stolen from. I was going through complete and utter mental abuse every fucking day. Don't get me wrong, right? He's got a silver tongue from hell, because not only did he, get all that out of me, but he built his own fucking social media brand off of everything he did with me. That legitimately kind of makes me upset, because he stole 90% of my earnings at the time. He collected, a bunch of living means to create some sort of fucking group to do this, which is the fucking worst part, He stole all of my money, literally took 90% of the money I was making, period, and used it to buy his mom's old house. He fixed up his BMW supercar. Meanwhile, I'm driving in a minivan, roommating in a fucking 2-bedroom apartment. And the worst fucking part was, right? The fucking worst part was, he kept having me sign all these different fucking revolving contracts all the fucking time, making alterations, never letting me know when alterations were made, and honestly, not even giving me really a chance to read it in person. He'd just come over with it and sign it. Shit. To be honest, it's frustrating because why did I let these people into my life? And when I think about it, right, Josh, he's probably underneath 5 foot tall, okay? Not even breaking 100 pounds. To be honest, I could have fucking blown him over with just a strong breath. You know what I'm saying? That whole type shit. How to be bad, we'll blow your house down type shit. But I was in the mindset of being completely fucked in the head and thinking to myself, they're taking on some of the load, less work for me. Well, that's better for me. The more people that, do this, the less I had to do. So even if I was making less cash and my page was starting to dry up, I was still okay because it was a lot less hard work to do. I'm not proud of myself. I ended up working with Josh right up until he started to introduce me to other people, and it was around this time at a dispensary meet and greet that I met some creators named Cookie Vana and Gucci Berry. Cookie ended up offering me a place to stay after my lease ended in my apartment, and I was dealing with, the guy took 90% of my funds, and my lease was up, and I had no money to move. I don't want to dive too deep into the Josh situation. We've already kind of gone on about it enough, and we've cried in the past enough about it, all right? The guy is a fucking leech with a Napoleon complex, and I'm tired of talking about the name Josh. Something I want to focus on, right? Really nail home is the fact that Josh never really left. Yeah, it really wasn't up until about Fish Tank Season 1, once I finally left Michigan, that Josh finally was no longer involved. Because even though I didn't talk to him, didn't directly work with him, my roommate Cookie, who was technically my landlord as well, along with Gucci Berry, did. And, Cookie and Gucci, they're being managed by this guy. And, so every time I was doing something or I said something or was involved with anything, it would always be eventually relayed back to Josh. It's bizarre because he was still basically managing me through proxy from Cookie. Dude's a fucking control freak. He couldn't let me go, you know what I'm saying? But Josh was basically over at that trailer fairly often. And I didn't like it. Pretty much was over every time. Every opportunity he had, he'd find his way in. Every time I had an opportunity to go to an event, he found a way to get Cookie into that event so he could go to the event. Tell me that. You know what I'm saying? And, the whole entire time I'm leaving with Cookie, Gucci Berry, they're being managed by Josh. And, Cookie was supposed to be helping me. The guy who's working with my arch nemesis, Josh, the guy who blackmailed me with nudes he stole from my old pages, for Pete's sake. The guy who's been exposed countless times by countless YouTubers for fucking me over. And now he's back, somehow rose from the dead. Sure, shit, Really want to hear something fucked up. The first trip that I had where I met my buddy B, Blaze, that first trip when I came out to New York for that event as a representative for his hash brand, basically, right? Josh, Cookie, and Gooch basically were trying to say, yo, you guys gotta fly Josh out too if you want us. And Josh was, hitting up all my friends, and he was basically trying to get someone to get him out there. He even said, hey, I'll get my own hotel room, I'll get my own plane ticket, but you know what? The one person who had my back, the one person that said, fuck that, no, he's not coming out here, it was Blaze. He had my fucking back, man. Because as soon as Josh kept bugging him, he said fucking no way in hell. No way in fucking hell. And no joke, he literally said, do not show the fuck up. That's when I found out through fucking B, in some ways, that, they were working together like that. And it was kind of, it was fucked. And, look, as far as I know, I've gotten away from him in the public eye. But sadly, he never really did go away. You know what I'm saying? He couldn't keep his greasy paws out the honey pot. He couldn't keep his tarred hands out of the feather bag. Cookie and Gucci really did try to insist on him coming. How can you do that and call yourself my friend, But B said straight the fuck up, no. This is where Cookie and Gucci Berry saw their opportunity. So the sponsor would hit me up and then snake it from underneath. At least that's how I'm going to put it. They snaked it from underneath me. And they did the same thing with gigs, too. Not just no jumper, to which, that interview that Josh was there. Yeah, that was supposed to be me out there. I was supposed to go with them. But you know what? No. Cookie talked me into staying, which at the time, I was happy to. You know what I'm saying? Because, it was that lazy loop. And this had happened not just this time, but multiple trips where I should have went. And Cookie was out making content. I should have went. I let him talk me into just staying home. And I was happy with it. Because, hey, it wasn't that much hard work. And the worst part is, they always brought Josh with them. I mean, sometimes when they would get us all three booked together, right? That there was something funny because every time it seemed like I would end up with very little to close to none of the funds. And, it seemed like they were getting a lot out of these trips. A lot of leads, people following them and such. For instance, they had their own followings, right? Don't get me wrong, right? They already had a lot of people there, and I'm not trying to act like I was the only one that made them, but they got a lot of their big leads through my page. And the never had a money pit situation, the eviction scandals, it always came down to somehow being late on rent, and then suddenly needing more rent, and Cookie and his wife needing a vehicle, and at the time, my Social Security, drained up completely for rent. But somehow I still always owed more. And, things like this got so deep that the majority of the time, my pages were being used to promote Cookie's pages. Cookie and Gucci had gone in and basically taken over my side channels that I had. And even a couple of my same pages and changed their usernames. No joke, Gucci Berry straight up took my old TikTok. The one with 100,000 followers. Yeah, if you stroll far enough back in through the TikTok tags, you can see where it was actually my account originally. They deleted all my content off that TikTok, changed the username, and changed the password, took my 100K followers. And I got nothing for it. And Cookie used to hold contests back in the day where people would follow the Airsoftfatty Instagram page, and apparently I would follow the people right back. I never knew he was fucking doing this. There were just a bunch of random fans of my page after he would do this, and it just kind of confused me. Because every time someone messaged me for a promo or collab to hit me up, Cookie was always messaging them saying, hey, you should follow Cookie. Or hey, go follow Gucci. Or can you share, Cookie's page? He used my accounts like some sort of stupid fucking marketing plan. Especially for his own shit for almost 2 years. There's legit daily fucking messages, redirecting people to his pages just from my DMs. My fucking DMs, dude. And you know what's crazy, I'll tell you something that's really crazy. You ready? You see, there was this whole entire movie they wanted to do, Apple Fritter. And it was built around me being one of the lead characters. And, it's on IMDb and everything. They ended up using my likeness for some of the promotions. And they ended up, scamming a bunch of people out of funds. And I think, on this situation, it's more the director's fault than Cookie, for sure. But, they all got a pretty piece of the pie, but me. I never saw anything out of it. I actually was owed money, never got it. And, I never saw anything come of it. They used my likeness to promote it, and then last minute, because I asked for my money, they changed the flyer to another actor. He's even holding the lightsaber in the promo. And, the director, he reached out to me, and, he wanted to get his beak wet. Roll clip.
Have a good day, sir. Because therefore you have no litigation. Litigation. Understand that word. Litigation.
To be honest, right, the hardest pill to swallow, it isn't even the fact the, taking advantage of thing it was. It was the, that the strings that were behind it were all being pulled by Josh. I literally could not escape this little dweeb. He was like a fucking tick full of Lyme's disease. And even when you got rid of him, you still had the fucking Lyme's disease. And it drove me nuts. Every time I turned around, he was somehow involved in my life. And he just wouldn't leave me the fuck alone. This all ties into my past video with, the Ian situation. I gotta be a man. I gotta talk about some shit, right? Cookie had emailed Ian, from my email, and he had asked several times for money. Asked Ian several times for money. And Ian eventually did send $800 for rent. That's that whole infamous 800 thing that, Haley from Epic Mealtime pulled up. Yes, one time. And it wasn't a payment for Creative Clash, and it wasn't a payment for the documentary. It was a one-time payment that Cookie fucking bugged him for. And all this is fucked, right? But you know what's worse? It gets even worse. Because the worst part is, I let this all happen to me. Like I said, I was lazy. I was letting depression take a hold of me. And I try not to cry because it's not right. I fucked up. It's wrong. I can guarantee I knew it was wrong back then, too. I just wanted to say that I'm sorry, my fans. I failed you guys. I failed my old self. And I could tell, I didn't have much strength to do stuff back then, but I still should have did something. I lost a lot of my love for social media. I was stuck between being too lazy to care and trying to help, and thought if I could, build a page up once I could do it again, I kind of really thought, I thought I'd be able to skate through with minimal. That was my fucking huge mistake. These past few years, because not only was I depressed and being lazy, I was barely out of my room, never really left it. When I would have something to do, I'd usually find some sort of stupid excuse to not do it, and shit, even if it meant I was losing money, I would have had a bunch of opportunities and work gigs. I just didn't bother to do them because it just wasn't easy. When I get off my ass, I just sat at that PC and smoked all fucking day. To be honest, I kept them happy, kept money going in. And I was just so wrapped up in my brain's processes that I really thought what I was doing was, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought what I was doing at the time was something super important. I thought, hey, this is the way it's supposed to be. And I didn't realize that I was causing a lot of damage to my social media pages and my brands. I had no idea half the stuff was even going on because I didn't log on every day. Realizing I couldn't trust Cookie, and it was a huge wake-up call. Constantly rubbing shoulders with people that he and Gucci were constantly stealing, along with mooching off my social medias. So after, of course, I ended up moving out of the whole situation, getting out of Michigan, right? Cookie started hitting me up and trying to get over $2,000 out of me for some damages for a fucked up flooring and a bathroom. And, they sent me clips with the contractor, right?
Yeah, bro. This is the contractor, bro.
Yeah, man. That's just what
that
you gotta do.
That boy came up to $2,008. So they're all here, and you said we just gotta get that done?
Yeah, that's what's gotta be done. That's just what's gotta be replaced and done for...
the house, too.
Yeah, the house will be fixed and be repaired.
All right, thanks.
Now look, the whole reason I was on fish tanks is because trolls were harassing my apartment complex manager, my little trailer park manager, and they were harassing the hell out of him. And truth is, even that was my fault because I left a bad review under my actual name for the trailer park, and the trolls found where I lived. Harassed the member, told them we had animals, and at the time the complex was basically kicking me out. Cookie didn't have a choice but to force me to move, so I had to go. I had to be the one to move. Since then, our relationship is strained, and I don't talk to him, or Gucci, or I don't think I ever will. Since then, our relationship, me, Cookies, Josh's, Gucci's, there's nothing really there. And don't get me wrong, I do wish for the best of them. I don't wish any ill will. I just, I had to move on with my life and get away from this chapter and, grow. Not only as a content creator, but as a man. Now, I don't want you guys going and attacking these people, okay? I want you attacking anyone mentioned in today's video. Don't bother them. None of it. Because truth is, in this society, in this culture, social media does to people some crazy thing. And it makes them so fucking hungry for clout. That's me included. The entire social media influencer scene is full of snakes hiding in tall grass. And you really can't trust, the people who want a gun for your spot. You know what I'm saying? You can't be the king and trust a serf who's so desperate that they'd stab you in the back for your throat. And you really can't blame them either. It's just kind of the world we live in, and they're hungry for whatever little dribble of lightning in a bottle they can get. That they'll do anything, including snuffing out the lightning in my bottle. A lot of influencers believe that in order for you to win, someone has to lose. And it wasn't all bad. At times, Cookie Vanna was like a brother. Despite all the, extra drama and shit, I still have love for him and love for his wife as well. They did help me when nobody else would, and truthfully, I wish things didn't go down the way it did. I imagine it now that if we had both worked hard to collab and do some sponsorships, if we had done funnier skits, things would have been a lot different, and I wish they were different. Shit, I would even probably collaborate again in the future with them. If, stars ended up aligning and things like that. But I wouldn't be trusting any of them on that deep level in my business ever again. Because nobody can do it like me. Okay? Because I'm not just Airsoftfatty. I'm Tank, the Airsoftfatty. Christopher Michael LaFawn, the kid. Even though my business is simply swinging lightsabers or painting myself green, you'll still catch me doing crazy shit like puking on stage all up on ESPN and being at Rolling Louds and shit. A lot of the reasons I'm doing these videos is, maybe to share some of my life experience, right? And then in hopes that sharing that life experience, somebody who might be going through something similar, or maybe even the same exact thing someday, they might be able to look at this, look around themselves, and be able to ground themselves and think again. And just remember, no matter if you're autistic, you're bipolar, whether you're from the dirt, from the sky, whether you bleed red, bleed blue, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, we're all human, and I just wanted to share my changes and the things that I've grown in hopes that sharing my story might, help someone out, if nothing else. I forget who says it, but there's a famous quote out there, and it says, if you're going through hell, you might as well just keep on going, because you're already in hell, your skin's already burning, it's melting off, the flesh is being eaten by the flames, so why not keep going? Why sit there and burn? Because you know what, I kept going, I kept pushing, and here I am. And, these things are easy for me to talk about, because, especially nowadays, they don't affect me. I'm totally out of it, and I'm in a much better situation. The irony is, these guys are the ones who got me. Cookie was the one who originally messaged Blaze in order to try to get some free samples. And, he flew us out. But me and Blaze connected over those past few days while out there. And, we stayed in touch, and spontaneously and sporadically, we would hop into Discord and chat and chill. And he was there when I needed someone to talk to. And when that situation happened where I was getting kicked out, he was the one that I spoke to when I was homeless, and he was the one I turned to for help. So, you know, without Cookie on my pages, sourcing for more followers and fresh hash, I never would have met Blaze. I never would have met Sam Hyde. I would have never been on Fish Tank. I wouldn't be here talking to you guys right now. I'm grateful I got a solid group of friends that support me and just want to help me and keep me at my best, even if it means calling me out. Because honestly, these are the kind of people that I call. These are the kind of people in my life that if we were to disappear for a year and link back up again, oh, we're smoking and talking like it ain't been more than a day. That's fucking family. No more eviction scandals. No more airsoft scammy. No more anything like that. I don't have to pay rent at the moment. I've got my own tiny home. I've got a bunk bed so when my buddies are over, they can chill. On a nice piece of land my buddy lets me borrow. I haven't really had to pay rent in 2 years. And other things I really have to worry about cost-wise are my electric, my internet, my other utilities. And I'll tell you what, this is nice. To have a place that I can call my own, to come back to, that I don't have to hit a landlord up to decide if I want to do something to it. I had a personal hand in putting this place together. It feels good. And you know, on top of this feeling, I have friends now, especially my friend Blaze, who we've gotten so close now that he considers me fucking family, and I consider him fucking family. And you know, I've been out to his family for you know, holiday dinners and such, and I've visited them, and I've been there for some big moments, and you know, it's inspiring to have this kind of feeling now, because it inspires me to keep grinding fucking hard, to keep busting my ass, because there's gonna come a day, hopefully not too far out, where I'm gonna have my own piece of property to move this thing to. Now, if I don't move this thing to it, I'll be getting something a little bigger. When you have your own place to relax and sleep, there's a crazy level of comfort that comes with having a place to belong. And there's a certain level of gratification that comes from it all as well. You see, last Christmas was one of the first Christmases in years that someone actually, you know, got presents for me. Just talking together. It felt like a real holiday, like a real one since before my mother had fucking died. And I know I said that in kind of a weird way, but it's true. Like, I haven't celebrated, like, even before her death, right? For about 2 or 3 years, like the last 2 or 3 years, she really didn't do much for Christmas. So it felt really good to, like, go back to that feeling of comfort back when shit wasn't chaotic, you know? And I really appreciated it. And, you know, truth is, I don't see all of this as some negative experience. I mean, sure, it sucks and it hurts, but it was a learning lesson. It was a chance for me to become a better person and to learn from my mistakes. And it felt good to learn. It taught me a lot. It taught me about trust, and it taught me about, you know, hard work. And it's teaching me a very sad reality. And, you know, part of that is, you know, how much can you really trust a guy who gets kicked in the balls for a living?